Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today we are going to start with a new topic, that is pulmonary circulation. In this topic we are going to understand the special aspects of pulmonary circulation which are important for the gas exchange. The lung has two types of circulations, as we have discussed this point when we learned about the physiological anatomy of the respiratory tract. It has two types of circulation, a high pressure and low flow circulation, which is the bronchial circulation, and it also has a low pressure high flow circulation, which is the pulmonary circulation. So two types of circulations are there in the lungs: a high pressure low flow circulation formed by the bronchial vessels, and a low pressure high flow circulation formed by the pulmonary blood vessels. First we are going to quickly go through the bronchial circulation, which is formed by the bronchial vessels. Now bronchial artery, it arises from the aorta, which is the part of systemic circulation. The blood flow through the bronchial arteries is 1 to 2% of the cardiac output. The purpose of the blood flowing through the bronchial circulation is to carry the oxygenated blood to the lung parenchyma. The bronchial veins carry deoxygenated blood to the pulmonary veins, which constitute the physiological shunt, which means deoxygenated blood is added, it's mixed up with the oxygenated blood in the pulmonary veins. Now this is the diagram showing us the origin of the bronchial arteries. As I just told you that bronchial arteries are part of systemic circulation, and they are the branches of descending aorta. So in this diagram you can see this is the aorta, this is its ascending part, this is the arch of aorta, and this is its descending part. So the bronchial arteries are the branches of the aorta, and these carry the oxygenated nutrient rich blood to the lung parenchyma. Now we will talk about the pulmonary circulation in detail, and we are going to see the characteristic features of the pulmonary circulation which are important for the gas exchange process. Now pulmonary circulation is formed by the pulmonary blood vessels. The pulmonary artery, it receives blood from the right ventricle. It carries deoxygenated blood from the entire body. 5 centimeters beyond the apex of the heart, it divides into two branches, the left and the right pulmonary artery, each of which is going to enter into the respective lungs. Now this blood which is present in the pulmonary arteries, it is carried to the alveolar capillaries or the pulmonary capillaries for gas exchange. So the purpose of the pulmonary circulation is the oxygenation of the blood. The blood is oxygenated in the pulmonary capillaries, and the pulmonary veins carry this oxygenated blood back to the heart into the left atrium. Now the blood flowing through the pulmonary circulation is equal to the cardiac output. Now we are going to briefly discuss the characteristics of the pulmonary vessels. First we are going to talk about the pulmonary arteries, and then we will talk about the pulmonary veins. Now pulmonary arteries are thin walled as compared to their systemic counterparts. The thickness of the wall of the pulmonary arteries is only 1/3 of the thickness of the aorta. The branches of the pulmonary arteries are short as compared to their systemic counterparts, that is in the branches in the systemic circulation, and all the branches of the pulmonary arteries have a large diameter as compared to the counterparts in the systemic circulation. And the compliance of the pulmonary arteries is large. It is 7 ml per millimeter of mercury, and this allows to accommodate a large volume of blood. Now, the characteristics of the pulmonary veins. Now, pulmonary veins, like pulmonary arteries, are short and they carry oxygenated blood to the left atrium. So, this was about the structural characteristics of pulmonary blood vessels. Now, we will move on to the functional characteristics of the pulmonary circulation, in which we are going to talk about the pressures at different levels of pulmonary circulation. So first we are going to see what are the pressures in the pulmonary arterial system. As we discussed in the beginning, that it is a low pressure system. The systolic blood pressure in the pulmonary artery is 25 millimeter of mercury, while the diastolic blood pressure in the pulmonary arteries is 8 millimeter of mercury, and the mean arterial pressure is 15 millimeter of mercury. Again, I am repeating that pulmonary circulation is a low pressure system. So the pressures in the pulmonary arteries are low, less as compared to the systemic circulation. In systemic circulation, the systolic blood pressure is 120 millimeter of mercury, while in case of pulmonary artery, the systolic blood pressure is only 25 millimeter of mercury, while diastolic blood pressure is only 8 millimeter of mercury as compared to 80 millimeter of mercury in the systemic circulation. And the mean arterial pressure is also low, that is 15 millimeter of mercury. The pulmonary capillary pressure is 7 millimeter of mercury. Now this is the diagram showing us the different pressure values at different levels of pulmonary circulation, and in the upper part of this diagram we have the aortic pressure curve, which gives us a comparison of the pressures in the two systems. So here we can see the pulmonary artery pressure curve. This is it. This is the pulmonary artery pressure curve. The systolic blood pressure is 25 millimeter of mercury. The diastolic blood pressure is 8 millimeter of mercury. And this black curve, this is the right ventricular pressure curve. The right ventricular pressure is also low as compared to the left ventricle. Again, I am repeating, the pressures in the right ventricle is low as compared to the pressure in the left ventricle. The systolic blood pressure in the right ventricle is 25 millimeter of mercury, while diastolic blood pressure in the right ventricle is 0 or just above 0, approximately 1 millimeter of mercury. Again, I am repeating that in the right ventricle, the systolic blood pressure is 25. It's almost the same as the pressure in the pulmonary artery, as the systolic blood pressure in the pulmonary artery. While diastolic blood pressure in the right ventricle, it ranges from 0 to 1 millimeter of mercury. And you can see a high pressure in the aorta, which is the systemic part of systemic circulation, 120 and 80 millimeter of mercury. Now we are going to talk about the left atrial pressure and the pulmonary venous pressure. The mean pressure in the pulmonary venous system and in the left atrium, it is 2 millimeter of mercury. However, it can range from 1 to 5 millimeter of mercury. Again, I am repeating that pressure in the left atrium and in the pulmonary veins, on an average, it is 2 millimeter of mercury, while it can range from 1 to 5 millimeter of mercury. So we can see that the entire pulmonary circulatory system is a low pressure system. Now this diagram shows us again the pressures at different levels of the pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary arterial pressure, the systolic pressure, which is the 25 millimeter of mercury, the diastolic pressure, which is 8 millimeter of mercury, and the mean arterial pressure, which is 15 millimeter of mercury. As the pulmonary artery branches into smaller arteries, the pressure is going to decrease, and in pulmonary capillaries, the pressure is 7 millimeter of mercury. And this pressure further decreases in the venous system, so that in the pulmonary veins and in the left atrium, the pressure, average pressure is 2 millimeter of mercury. Now, how can we measure the left atrial pressure? Measurement of pressure in the left atrium. Now, it is not feasible to measure the left atrial pressure by a direct pressure measuring device. So, it can be estimated by measuring the pulmonary wedge pressure. I am repeating that it is not feasible to measure the left atrial pressure by a direct pressure measuring device, but we can measure it by estimating the pulmonary wedge pressure. Now this diagram shows us the procedure to measure the pulmonary wedge pressure. Now in estimating the pulmonary wedge pressure, a catheter is inserted through a peripheral vein into the right atrium, that is into the right side of the heart. So we can see in this diagram, this is one of the peripheral vein through which the catheter is introduced, and this catheter is advanced into the right side of the heart, that is the right atrium, and from the right atrium it is pushed to the right ventricle, and then from the right ventricle it enters it is advanced into the pulmonary artery. Now this catheter is advanced into the small branches of the pulmonary arteries until it wedges tightly in one of the small branch. Again, I am repeating, in pulmonary wedge pressure measurement, a catheter is introduced through a peripheral vein to the right side of the heart, and through the right side of the heart it is advanced into the pulmonary arteries, and as it advances through the pulmonary arteries it enters the small branches, and it is advanced forward and it is pushed forward until it wedges, it blocks a small branch of the pulmonary artery. The point where it wedges a small branch of pulmonary artery, at that point the pressure is measured, and this pressure is called as pulmonary wedge pressure. Now pulmonary wedge pressure, it is reflective of the left atrial pressure, because beyond this wedge point, the pulmonary capillaries and the pulmonary veins make a direct connection with the left atrium. So the pressure measured at the point of wedging is reflective of left atrial pressure. This pressure is about 2 to 3 millimeter of mercury greater than the left atrial pressure. So it is 2 to 3 millimeter of mercury greater than the actual left atrial pressure. Again, this diagram to show you the wedge technique. It's the same. So we will move on to the next topic, that is the blood volume in the lungs. The total volume of blood in the pulmonary circulation is 450 ml. It is about 9% of the total blood volume of the entire circulatory system. Now, of this 450 ml, 70 ml is present in the pulmonary capillaries, while rest is equally distributed between pulmonary arteries and the pulmonary veins. An important feature of the lung is that it serves as a reservoir of blood. It means that it can accommodate extra blood, that is pulmonary circulation can accommodate extra blood, and it can also donate blood to the systemic circulation under different conditions. For example, when a person blows hard, for example, during blowing a musical instrument like a trumpet, high pressure is built up in the lungs, and this high pressure in the lungs, it throws an extra 250 ml of blood into systemic circulation. Similarly, when there is loss of blood from systemic circulation, like due to hemorrhage, the blood volume in the systemic circulation is decreased, and this causes the blood to be shifted from the pulmonary circulation to systemic circulation. While in case of heart failure, that is the left heart failure, or if there is increased resistance at the mitral valve due to stenosis of the mitral valve, the blood is pooled up in the pulmonary circulation. So this is opposite to what we just discussed. So at certain times there can be shift of the blood from the pulmonary circulation into systemic circulation, and in certain situations there can be collection of extra blood in the pulmonary circulation. An example of this is left heart failure. In left heart failure, or when there is stenosis of the mitral valve, the blood is pooled up in the pulmonary circulation. This pooling of the blood in the pulmonary circulation, obviously it increases the blood volume in the lungs. It also increases the pulmonary vascular pressures. Now, the factors modifying the pulmonary blood flow. Now, remember, this is very important, that there is no auto-regulation of pulmonary blood flow as you have learned in the systemic circulation. There is no auto-regulation of pulmonary blood flow. However, tissue metabolic factors have regulatory role and they control the blood flow. Another very important feature of pulmonary vasculature is its response to low alveolar oxygen. When alveolar oxygen is reduced, it causes vasoconstriction. Now, this response is opposite to what you have studied in the systemic circulation. In systemic circulation, when there is hypoxia, it causes the blood vessels to dilate. But in pulmonary circulation, decreased pressure of oxygen in the alveoli causes the pulmonary vessels to undergo constriction. Now, although the exact mechanism of this vasoconstrictor response is not known, but several theories have been postulated, several mechanisms have been explained the vasoconstriction. So one of these possible mechanism is that low oxygen, it stimulates the release of vasoconstrictor substances, or it can decrease the release of vasodilator substances. So decreased release of vasodilators will cause vasoconstriction. Or there is another mechanism that there is inhibition of the oxygen sensitive potassium channels in response to low PO2 in the alveolar air. Now, inhibition of these oxygen sensitive potassium channels causes depolarization and activation of the calcium channels, opening of the calcium channels, which cause influx of calcium into the smooth muscles of the blood vessels, and this in turn triggers the contraction and results in vasoconstriction. Now, whatever is the mechanism of this vasoconstrictor response to low PO2, the significance is very important. Now, significance of this vasoconstriction is that it redirects the blood flow to the part of the lungs which are better ventilated. So, it provides an automatic control for distributing the blood flow to the pulmonary areas in proportion to the alveolar oxygen pressure. I can further elaborate it that vasoconstriction, it will decrease the blood flow to the area of the lung which is not properly ventilated, so that it will go to the other area of the lung which is better ventilated, and significance will be that there will be adequate oxygenation of the blood when it is redirected to the better ventilated area. If it is not redirected to the better ventilated area, this blood will not be oxygenated because of low PO2 in the alveolar air. So this is the significance, that it redirects the blood to the better ventilated areas so that there can be adequate oxygenation of the blood. Now this diagram shows us the mechanism of vasoconstriction in response to low PO2. Now, low partial pressure of oxygen causes closure of the oxygen sensitive potassium channels. Now, closure of oxygen sensitive potassium channels, it results in accumulation of potassium inside the cells. Now, due to which there is depolarization. Now, this depolarization inside the cell will open up the calcium channels. There will be calcium influx, and this will cause the vasoconstriction. And this is the diagram showing us the significance. So this is the one alveolus, this is another alveolus, and in the surrounding is their blood supply. You can see here. Now what happens is that if there is some obstruction here in the airways, it will decrease the ventilation of this alveolus. Decreased ventilation of the alveolus will cause a decrease in the partial pressure of oxygen here, and due to this decreased partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolus, what will be the response? The response of the vasculature will be vasoconstriction. There will be constriction of the blood vessels, so that the blood flow to this area is decreased. Instead, more blood will go to the other areas which is receiving better ventilation, so that there is adequate oxygenation of the blood. So these were the important functional characteristics of pulmonary vasculature. We will stop here. In the next lecture, we will continue with the same topic, and we will learn about the zones of pulmonary blood flow in the lungs, which are formed by the hydrostatic pressure differences in different areas of the lung, and we will talk about the pulmonary edema, and we will also talk about the interstitial forces. Thank you for your listening.